Everyone, it's Gloria with Gloria Beauty Sale, and I'm here to do a What Sold video from July 27th to August 2nd. And this is on eBay, Poshmark, and Etsy. eBay was slightly better this week, but still, it used to be always, no matter what, my top platform. That is no longer true. So first thing to sell was this pair of Levi's shorts. These sold for $15 and the cost to me on them was 50 cents. Actually, they might have been 10 cents, but we'll say 50. The next item to sell was this Cowboy Bronco bucking horse belt. This sold for $39 and the cost to me on it was $5. Next item to sell was this Abercrombie and Fitch Moose logo Henley shirt. This sold for $21.25. The cost to me on it was 60 cents. And the last thing to sell on eBay, so you can see nothing was very high priced either. The last thing to sell was this vintage Lauren Bacall um, wearing a fur coat photograph. This sold for $12.86 and this cost me $1 tops. I've had it for a long time. Now over to Poshmark. And the first thing to sell on Poshmark, this was a recent buy at a yard sale. This floral tapestry top wicker sewing box. And this sold for $26. And the cost to me was $4. And the only other thing to sell on Poshmark was this vintage mid-century Dart Industries um, plastic frame windmill. This sold for $10. Cost to me on this was 10 cents. So really bad so far on eBay and Poshmark both. Now let's go over to Etsy. And I did run a little sale at one point. I like a one-day sale over here, and I think a couple people might have used a coupon. Oh, so this this was in the sale. I just listed it, so a little bit disappointed, but you know what? Who cares? I just wanted to get things going because things weren't really happening that week. So I put on a sale for one day, and this sold for 21.25. I'm sorry, don't 29.25. I had it right. And the cost to me on it was $12.99. So that was not a great sale, but that was all right. You know what? I wanted to get things going. And that's kind of a big piece and a heavy piece. Happy to see it move on. Next item to sell was this pair of vintage 1930s muffin cupcake pans. And these sold for $25. Cost to me on them was $2. Next item to sell was this vintage stained glass uh, dove. This sold for $38 and the cost to me on it was $1. Next item to sell was this primitive style basket and this sold for $22 I'm sorry. This was part of that sale. This sold for $16.50. Cost me on it was $1. Next item was this vintage rustic green scale. This sold. This was also on sale. So this sold for $48.75. Cost to me on it was $3. Next item was this vintage 80s wooden handle teapot, and this sold for $35, and the cost to me was $4.99. Next item to sell is this fossil bag. This sold for $29, and the cost to me was $5. Next item to sell was this vintage bamboo um, doors mirror. So this was it closed, this was it open. It was I really like this mirror. This is from the 70s, maybe 60s. And this sold for $168. Cost me on it was $28. Next item to sell was this three-legged heavy duty stool. This sold for $79. Cost to me was $10. I did very well on Etsy this week. The week of the 27th to the 2nd. So thank goodness because we saw what eBay and Poshmark look like. Next item to sell was this vintage can with two birds on it, which I don't usually pick these up, but I like the birds. I thought it was very pretty, and it did not take long to sell. I bought this probably, it sold within a couple weeks. And this sold for $17, and the cost to me was $1. So it was worth it, for a quick sale, turning $1 into 17 was worth it. The next item to sell was this vintage pair of black wrought iron plant hanger baskets. I mean, just plant hanger brackets. And these sold for $16, and the cost to me was $2. Next item to sell was this vintage wooden divided utensil carrier, and this sold for $48, and the cost to me on it was $5. Next item to sell, and this person bought um, this item and the next item. So that was a nice sale. They bought two items from me. First one was this rooster, which sold for $35, cost me $2.99. And the other item they bought was this old coal mining um, miner's dynamite cap box. And this sold for $78. And the cost to me on this, I believe, was $28, if I remember correctly. So, anyway. Next item to sell was this Perlina black leather handbag shoulder bag. This sold for $39, and the cost to me on it was $4. Next item to sell was this uh, kind of a leaf print shelf. It was a very pretty shelf. It was made of resin, but just a nice looking little upscale kind of shelf. And this sold for $49, and the cost to me was $5. The next item to sell were these home cow butterflies, kind of have a wicker bamboo type look to them, but they are plastic. These sold for $24, and the cost to me on them was $2. Next item to sell were this Tanala, right in the middle here, the Tanala owl. It's a little miniature owl. This sold for $22. Cost to me was $2.50. Next item to sell were this pair of brass candle sconces, and this sold for $53.10. They used a 10% off coupon. And the cost to me on them was $5. So that worked fine for me. Next item to sell was this smaller pair of brass candle holders. These sold for $22, and the cost to me on them was $3. Next item to sell was this mid-century swan. This sold for $38, and the cost to me on it was $6. The next thing to sell was this deer ashtray. This sold for $29. Took forever to sell. I thought it was so cute, but I've had this I bought it here, but I'm gonna say when I first moved here, so 3 years or more. Anyway, it sold finally for $29, cost me $4.99. Happy to see it go. Next item to sell was this vintage Homeco federal style shelf this is made of plastic. This sold for $20, cost me on it was $2. And the last thing to sell on Etsy, and if you're still here, please give me a like and subscribe. I could really appreciate it. And the last thing to sell was this set of 6 cobalt blue stemmed glasses, and these sold for $49, and the cost to me on them was $5. And that all she wrote. So as you can see, Etsy really made up for what is not happening in Poshmark or eBay. So anyway, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. And I will see you next time. Bye.